This is my model for action potential. This action potential happens in the nodes of Ranvier, which is the axon between the myelin sheath. Most of the time the axon is at rest and there's no signal passing down the axon. This resting stage always has the potential for a signal to pass down. During resting potential, the inside of the cell is more negative than the outside of the cell. This is because of the negative DNA inside the cell and that there are more positive ions outside of the cell. This polarity is necessary for a charge to pass down the axon. When a neuron is at rest, it has a charge of negative 70 megavolts inside the cell, and the majority of the sodium is outside, while the majority of the potassium is inside. The potassium pump runs at all times and uses 75% of the cell's energy just to keep it at rest. This pump keeps sodium outside of the cell and potassium inside of the cell. It does this using ATP. It is constantly trying to pump out any sodium that gets in and any potassium that gets out. There is always 3 sodium going out for every 2 potassium coming in. The official sodium and potassium channels are closed, but the leak channels are always open. When dendrites are stimulated, they trigger an action potential. They must meet the threshold of negative 55 megavolts to begin action potential. In order to meet this threshold, a little bit of sodium has started passing to the inside of the cell, making it slightly less negative. At this point, the threshold is met and depolarization has begun. The sodium channel fully opens up, and sodium begins pouring inside the cell without using any energy. The inside of the cell goes from being very negative at negative 70 megavolts to being neutral to being positive at positive 30 megavolts. Once positive 30 megavolts is reached, repolarization is triggered. The sodium channel closes and the potassium channel opens. Positive potassium ions move outside the cell, polarizing and even hyperpolarizing for a brief moment. The inside of the cell goes from being positive 30 megavolts to being negative 70 megavolts to hyperpolarizing at negative 80 megavolts and then back to negative 70 megavolts. At this point, all the sodium is on the inside and all the potassium is on the outside. Another signal can't travel until this is reset. Potassium channel closes and the sodium-potassium pump works to get all the sodium back out and all the potassium in. The neuron is now reset and back at resting potential.